Welcome to this explainer. Just take a breath for a second, maybe even close your eyes, and imagine a world built entirely of delicate, glistening threads. It looks absolutely beautiful in the light, but the slightest breeze, the gentlest pressure, threatens to just tear it all apart. Today, we're embarking on a really deep, introspective journey through Maulana Maududi's profound commentary, the Tafsir al-Quran. We're going to explore Surah Al-Ankabut, which is known as the spider. We'll be looking closely at the fragile illusions of our world and the unshakable reality that lies just beneath them. It's honestly an honor to guide you through this, because the imagery and the historical depth we're about to drift into are simply mesmerizing. So let's dive right in. The surah actually doesn't ease us in at all, it kind of wakes us up. It shatters that comfortable dream state we so often live in with this profoundly challenging question. Do people think they will be left alone just by saying we believe? It asks us to look in the mirror and realize that faith isn't merely a spoken word. It's not a magical spell that wards off difficulty. Instead, claiming to hold a conviction is literally an invitation to a test. It breaks the illusion that simply saying the words somehow grants us a free pass from the trials of existence. We're using Maulana Maududi's masterwork, the Tafsir al-Quran, as our gateway today. And what's so incredible is that Maududi doesn't just translate the words, he masterfully reconstructs the entire historical atmosphere in which they were revealed, giving us this incredibly rich philosophical exegesis. By grounding ourselves in this source material, we can really begin to peel back the layers of this ancient text and apply its timeless, ethereal wisdom to the fragile webs we weave in our own modern lives. Now, to truly grasp the weight of this surah, we have to drift back into the historical backdrop of Makkah. The early Muslims were living in a period of severe, almost unimaginable persecution. They were being entirely stripped of their wealth, their social standing, and their physical safety. The illusion of a comfortable, easy life completely shattered. The message they were receiving wasn't about avoiding pain, but rather understanding that the pain was a crucible. The comfort they once knew was just a temporary shadow, and the severe reality of their circumstances was actually forging something eternal. Anchoring us to the opening verses, Maududi's commentary explores the shock of this crucible. When persecution first hit the early believers, it was genuinely confusing for some of them, like, why would God allow those who follow his truth to suffer so deeply? The surah answers this by framing trials as a divine necessity. Just as extreme heat is required to separate pure gold from the dross, the text asserts that worldly trials are required to distinguish true, glowing conviction from mere lip service. The fire of the crucible isn't meant to destroy the believer, it's meant to purify them. The absolute core of this idea is captured so beautifully in this verse: Allah will surely make evident those who are truthful, and he will surely make evident the liars. Think of this as a sort of profound spiritual awakening. When the storm hits, the true nature of one's soul is entirely exposed to the light. You can't hide behind pleasantries or social status anymore. The text suggests that the trial strips everything away until only the absolute truth of who you are remains, standing right there in the ethereal light of reality. The text elegantly sets up this contrast between two completely different mindsets. On one side, we have true conviction. For the steadfast believer, the fire of worldly trials actually deepens their faith. The heat makes their foundation solid. But on the flip side, we have hypocrisy. Under pressure, the weak foundation of a hypocrite just fractures. When things get difficult, they mistakenly view these worldly trials as a punishment from the divine, rather than a test of their own endurance. They essentially expect the path of truth to be paved with silk, not stone. Maududi does this deep dive into the psychology of those whose faith cracks under pressure. He describes how some individuals will boldly claim to be believers during times of peace, but the moment the persecution of men arrives, they flee. They equate the temporary earthly struggles inflicted by society with the eternal wrath of God. And it's just a profound miscalculation. They abandon what the text frames as eternal truth just to escape a temporary discomfort, completely misunderstanding the very nature of the test they're in. But, the trials don't just come from external enemies or societal pressure. The text softly shifts our focus to another theme, the ultimate loyalty test. We're drifting now into the realm of our deepest worldly attachments. What happens when the pressure to abandon your convictions comes not from a hostile society, but from the very people who gave you life? We're about to explore the absolute limits of even our most sacred earthly bonds. There's this incredibly delicate, sensitive balance dictated by the surah. On one hand, there's an absolute command to honor one's parents with profound respect, kindness, and gratitude. But there's a boundary. The text establishes an absolute limit to that obedience. If parents demand that a person compromise eternal divine truths or associate partners with God, the believer must respectfully but firmly decline. the eternal reality literally has to take precedence over the biological tie, no matter how deeply painful that separation feels. It really makes you pause and reflect, doesn't it? How does a human heart endure the weight of such timeless trials? When society turns against you, and even your own family might pressure you to abandon your truth, where do you find the strength? Well, to answer this, the surah lifts our gaze. It takes us out of the immediate struggles of Makkah and transports us across the vast, epic scales of ancient history, just to show us that we are absolutely not the first to walk this difficult path. I want you to imagine a timeline that doesn't just span a few years, but nearly a millennium. We see Prophet Noah's ethereal journey here. Year 1, the call begins. Year 500, still enduring, constant, mocking rejection. Year 950, the final warning. It is a staggering, almost incomprehensible display of patience. Try to wrap your mind around standing firm in your conviction for 950 years in the face of absolute, unyielding denial from your own people. Maududi beautifully captures the essence of that 9.5-century span. He anchors us to the reality of Noah's solitary preaching, emphasizing that Noah's story isn't just some historical anecdote, it serves as a timeless echo. It's meant to fortify the believers in Mecca, and honestly anyone today who feels isolated in their convictions. When you feel alone, the text reminds you that one of the greatest figures in human history stood virtually alone for almost 1,000 years, yet his connection to the divine truth never once wavered. Let's just take a breath here and really listen to those echoes of the ancients. The narrative structure of the surah masterfully weaves these stories together, creating this sweeping tapestry of resilience. Drifting through the mists of time, we leave behind the cleansing, overwhelming floodwaters of Noah's era, and we step directly into the searing, transformative fires of Prophet Abraham's time. Maududi goes on to detail Abraham's epic confrontation. Abraham didn't just face rejection, he faced an entire idolatrous society that sought to physically destroy him by casting him into a massive fire. But the exegesis highlights the miraculous preservation, both physical and spiritual, that Abraham experienced. The fire of the world could not burn him, because he was entirely anchored to a reality greater than the physical world. The idols of his people were just illusions, but his connection to the divine was the ultimate unburnable truth. Which brings us right to the thematic climax of our explainer, the namesake metaphor of the entire surah. On one side, we have the spider's web, all our worldly attachments, our wealth, our status, our false idols. They seem intricately designed and safe, right? But they are fragile, temporary, and so easily swept away. On the other side, we have eternal reality, the divine truth. It is unshakable and enduring. Relying on absolutely anything other than the divine is literally compared to seeking shelter in the delicate, easily broken house of a spider when a massive storm is rolling in. So the ultimate takeaway here is beautifully summarized in this profound quote from the text. And whoever strives only strives for the benefit of himself. God does not need our struggles. He doesn't need our faith, nor is he diminished by our lack of it. The crucible, the fire, the trials, they're entirely for us. They are the intricate mechanisms designed for the awakening of our own souls, shaking us out of our illusions so we can finally realize our own eternal potential. As we bring this explainer to a close, I want to leave a final thought hanging gently in the air for you to ponder. We all weave our webs. We all build our lives with threads of career, relationships, and worldly hopes. But the storm will inevitably come. So I ask you, when the fragile webs of this world finally fade away, what eternal truth will anchor your soul? Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible, introspective journey through Surah Al-Ankabut. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.